The citadel stood high above the shining city, its towers rising like blades into the night sky. The air was cold and the stars above seemed cruel, endless points of light that gave no warmth. On the balcony of the tallest tower stood the noblewoman, her silver robes moving in the sharp wind. She was young, far too young to carry the weight of a dying world, yet the crown of her family pressed heavy on her head. She looked out at the stars and thought not of their beauty, but of the burden they carried. Her people believed she would save them. They believed her bloodline carried destiny. They believed she could stand against the humans who came closer each day. But inside her chest, her heart trembled like a trapped bird. She knew the truth. She was not ready behind her. The great hall was full of voices. The council argued as always. They shouted about war, about honor, about sacrifice. Every voice demanded action. Every eye looked to her. They saw her as the answer. But she felt like the question. She did not step back inside. She stayed in the cold, gripping the stone railing of the balcony. Her fingers pressed so hard they hurt. She wanted the pain because it was real, because it was simple, unlike the future. Unlike the endless decisions waiting for her, her world was dying, not from famine, not from sickness, but from fear. Fear of the humans. The stories of them spread like wildfire. They said humans never gave up. They said humans fought even when broken. They said humanity endured until their enemies crumbled. She had seen a human once, long ago, a prisoner brought before her father. His body was torn, his face bruised, but his eyes burned with fire. When her father demanded surrender, the man only laughed. Humanity never breaks, he had said. She had never forgotten that voice. Now, years later, that memory haunted her. Her people called humans monsters, but she remembered something else. Something dangerous. She remembered admiration. The noblewoman closed her eyes. The wind pushed against her, and she almost wished it would lift her away. But no, she could not flee, she could not fall. The burden was hers, an impossible burden. Yet she must endure. Inside, the council's shouting grew louder. One voice rose above the others. Lord Derevak, her fiercest general. The humans are close, he roared. We must strike now. While they are still far from our gates, we cannot wait for their fury to fall upon us. Others shouted in agreement. Some demanded more soldiers, some demanded blood. None spoke of peace. None spoke of mercy. To them, humanity was a storm, and only fire could answer fire. She turned her back to the hall. Her chest ached. She felt the walls closing in. She was heir to her people, but also their prisoner. She wanted to cry, but no tears came. Her heart was too heavy for tears. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the balcony. A messenger knelt before her, his face pale, his voice shaking. My lady, he said. The scouts report the human fleet has entered the outer rim. They will be here within weeks. Perhaps days. Her body froze, her blood turned cold. The moment she had feared had arrived. No more waiting, no more hiding. The humans were coming. The messenger left, leaving her alone again. She leaned against the stone wall. Closing her eyes, her breath came fast. She thought of her father, who had died believing she would save them. She thought of her people who prayed for her strength. She thought of the human prisoner, whose fire had burned even in chains. She whispered into the cold night air, How can I fight them? How can I carry this? Her voice broke, but the stars gave no answer. The city below slept, trusting her to guard their dreams. They did not see her fear. They did not see her trembling hands. The council doors opened behind her. Lord Derevak stepped onto the balcony. His eyes were sharp, his armor gleamed. He bowed slightly, but his words carried steel. You must decide, my lady. Will you lead us to war, or will you fall in silence? Her lips parted, but no sound came. She wanted to speak, but the weight on her chest crushed her words. She wanted to scream, but only silence came out. The general's eyes narrowed. He did not see a leader, he saw weakness when he left. She stood alone once more, her breath heavy, her heart torn. Above her the stars shone cold. Below her the city dreamed. And between them stood a noblewoman, trapped between duty and despair. Her people believed she was unbreakable. They believed her blood carried power. But she knew the truth. She was only flesh, only fear. Only a girl who had been given an impossible burden. And yet, even as the weight crushed her, a thought whispered inside her mind. The words of the human prisoner. The words she could never forget. Humanity never breaks. She gripped the balcony rail again, tighter this time. Her knuckles white, her arms shaking. She could not break. She must not break, the burden was impossible. Yes, but still she must endure. And so the noblewoman stood in the cold wind, her eyes filled with dread and fire, staring into the endless night where her enemy waited. The weight of duty was crushing, but she did not fall, not yet, not tonight. The night had not ended when whispers began to spread through the citadel. Servants carried trays with shaking hands. Guards moved with tense steps, and every shadow seemed to hide a secret. Word traveled fast, faster than the wind. The humans were closer than anyone had guessed. The noblewoman rose from her chamber. Her eyes heavy with no rest, she had tried to sleep. But her mind had been a battlefield of fear and memory. The words of the human prisoner still burned inside her skull. She wrapped her cloak around her shoulders and walked through the silent halls. Every torch flame seemed to flicker as if afraid of the coming storm. By the time she entered the council chamber, the air was already thick with anger. Generals slammed their fists against the stone table. Advisors raised their voices like wolves howling at the moon. Each one demanded a plan, yet each plan was soaked in blood. "The humans are demons," Lord Derivak thundered. His voice echoed across the chamber. "They take and take until nothing remains. They will not show mercy, they will not bend. We must strike them before they strike us, send the fleets, burn their ships before they reach our gates." Others agreed, voices overlapping like thunder. "Yes, strike first. Show them we are not weak. Let our enemies fear our fire." The noblewoman stood silent at the head of the table. Her hands gripped the edge until her nails dug into the stone. They all looked at her, but none asked what she wanted. They expected her to nod, to command destruction, but her heart was not at war with humans alone. It was at war with itself. In the shadows of the chamber, one old advisor spoke softly. His voice was like dry leaves in autumn. "What if the humans do not come to destroy? What if they come to speak?" The council burst into laughter, harsh and cruel. "Speak? With humans? Fools dream," Lord Derivak spat. "They are not creatures of peace, they are predators. They will devour us unless we cut them down first." The noblewoman lowered her gaze, her chest ached with conflict. For she alone knew something the others did not, long ago. When the human prisoner had stood before her father, he had spoken not only of endurance, he had spoken of choice. "One day, you will see," he had said, "humanity can fight, but humanity can also forgive." Those words had never left her. Now the choice lay in her hands, but the council would never accept weakness. If she even whispered of peace, they would tear her down. Already they doubted her strength. Already they questioned if she carried the blood of her ancestors truly. A young scout entered the chamber, his armor dented, his face pale with fear. He fell to one knee, his voice trembling. "My lady, lords, I bring word. The human fleet has lit the outer void. Hundreds of ships, maybe more. They move not like invaders, but like guardians. In formation, steady, disciplined." Gasps filled the hall. Some cursed, some cried. Lord Derivak's eyes gleamed like fire. "See, they come with iron and fire. We must strike before they set foot on our soil." The noblewoman's heart raced. She could not ignore the report. She could not ignore the shadow of the humans hanging over her people like a storm. She closed her eyes for a brief moment. In her mind she saw their faces. Soldiers marching, pilots flying, leaders deciding, and somewhere among them, perhaps the man she once spared. "Your silence is weakness," Lord Derivak said sharply. His words struck like a blade. "Every moment you hesitate, the humans draw nearer. Every moment you question, you bring death upon us all." Her lips parted, but she held her tongue. She wanted to scream back. She wanted to demand another path, but before she could speak, another voice joined the storm. It was Lady Sarath, one of the younger advisors. Her tone sharp as glass. "What if the humans are not our greatest threat? What if the true danger is already here, among us?" Her eyes slid across the table, suspicion dripping from every glance. "Perhaps betrayal is closer than we think." The chamber fell into silence. Each lord and advisor eyed the others with suspicion. The noblewoman felt a shiver run down her spine. The humans were not even at their gates, and already her people were breaking apart. Fear was cutting them faster than any enemy blade. She rose slowly, her cloak heavy, her heart heavier. "Enough," she whispered. But her voice was drowned by another wave of shouting. Plans, accusations, promises of victory and doom. They no longer spoke as leaders, they spoke as frightened animals. Leaving them behind, she stepped out into the night. The air was sharper than before. The stars above seemed closer, brighter, as if watching her. She looked toward the horizon where the humans would come. Her breath caught in her throat for the first time. She wondered if her people were right. Perhaps the humans truly were monsters. Perhaps the prisoner's words were nothing but a trick. But her heart whispered otherwise. Her heart whispered that the shadow of the enemy was not only human. The shadow was fear. The shadow was doubt. The shadow was inside her and inside her people. She gripped her cloak and stood tall. The burden still crushed her. But she knew the truth of her struggle. It was not only against the humans beyond the stars. It was against the shadows within her own walls. And as the night deepened, the noblewoman understood. The war had already begun, and it was not yet fought with swords or fire. It was fought with whispers, suspicion, and fear. The noblewoman sat alone in her private chamber. The council's voices still rang in her ears, anger and suspicion echoing like hammers against her heart. She closed the heavy doors to silence the world. But silence did not bring peace, silence only brought memory. In the corner of the room burned a single lamp. Its light flickered across the walls, touching the tapestries of her ancestors, warriors with swords raised, kings and queens standing tall. None of them looked afraid. All of them looked unbreakable. She hated their faces. They were ghosts that demanded she live up to their glory. Her hand touched her desk, fingers brushing over an old box hidden beneath papers. It was carved with strange marks, not of her people. Her father had forbidden her to keep it, but she had disobeyed. Inside the box lay a fragment of memory, a chain from a human prisoner. Her breath trembled as she lifted it. The metal was cold, scarred with scratches. She remembered the day she had taken it. She had been young, barely more than a child. The human had been dragged before her father, his body broken, his wrists bound by that very chain. She could still see his face, blood on his brow, fire in his eyes. He should have been silent in defeat, but instead he laughed. "You cannot break me," he had said. His voice had been hoarse but strong. Humanity never breaks. The hall had fallen silent that day. Even her father's generals had paused, for no one had ever spoken to them like that. No one had ever looked into their eyes with such defiance. Her father had ordered the man executed, but she had begged for mercy. She had told him that the prisoner could be useful, that he might hold secrets in truth. She had not wanted to see the fire die from those eyes. Against the will of the court, her father had spared him. But only for a time. The man had died later, starved in the dungeons. Yet his words lived inside her now, years later. She felt the same fire burn in her chest, and it frightened her. She was supposed to hate humans, but she remembered admiration. She was supposed to see them as beasts, but she remembered honor. She set the chain back into the box, shutting it quickly as if to lock away her guilt. If the council ever discovered her secret, they would call her a traitor. They would strip her title. They might even strip her life. A knock echoed on the door, sharp and sudden. She froze, heart racing. She shoved the box beneath the desk and stood. "Enter," she said, her voice steadier than her soul. It was Lady Sereth, the younger advisor. Her eyes glittered like knives in the lamplight. "My lady," she said smoothly. "The council is restless. The generals grow impatient. Lord Derevek demands a decision soon. He whispers that perhaps you are too weak to lead." The noblewoman forced her face into calm, though her heart thudded like a drum. "And what do you whisper?" "Lady Sereth," the advisor smiled thinly. "I whisper nothing. I only watch and I see shadows, shadows around you. Shadows that speak of secrets. Tell me, my lady, do you hide anything from us?" The noblewoman's stomach tightened. She kept her gaze steady. "I hide nothing that matters," she answered. The words tasted bitter, for she knew they were a lie. Lady Sereth bowed, though her eyes never left the noblewoman's face. "Good, because secrets are dangerous in times like these. A single whisper can break an empire." She left, her footsteps fading into the hall. The noblewoman exhaled sharply once the door closed. Her knees felt weak. She returned to the desk, but did not open the box again. The shadows of her past were too heavy tonight. She walked to the balcony. The night air was colder than before. Clouds covered the stars, hiding the light. She stared into the darkness, into the place where the human fleet would soon appear. For a moment she imagined the prisoner's face among them. She imagined him alive, standing tall, leading others with the same fire. It was impossible. He was long dead. Yet her heart insisted on the vision. She whispered to the wind, "Why do your words still burn in me? Why do I remember when I should forget?" Her voice cracked. The wind gave no answer. A sound broke her thoughts, a distant rumble. At first she thought it was thunder, but then she realized it came from beyond the horizon. Ships moving in the void, great engines shaking the heavens. The humans were closer. Their shadow stretched over her world now. She pressed her hands against the stone rail. The memory of the human prisoner would not leave her. His defiance had planted something inside her, something her people would call poison. But she called it truth. The truth was simple. Her people believed blood and honor made them strong. But she had seen another kind of strength. A strength that came from refusing to bend even when chains cut your skin. A strength that came from never breaking. Her eyes burned with unspoken fire. She knew she could not confess her past. She knew she could not reveal her secret. But she also knew this. Her heart had already chosen a path. She did not yet know where it would lead, but it would not be the path her counsel demanded. The past lived inside her, shaping her, guiding her, and though it was hidden in shadows, it was stronger than the voices in the council chamber. The noblewoman whispered into the night, her words carried away by the cold wind. An impossible burden, yet I must endure. And in the silence that followed, she swore she heard an echo, faint and distant, like a ghost from her hidden past. Humanity never breaks. The citadel bells rang at dawn. Their sound was deep and heavy, echoing through the valleys below. The noblewoman stood by her window, watching the pale sun rise through gray clouds. The light was weak, and so was her hope. Messengers had come through the night. Their words brought no comfort. The humans were closer than ever. Their ships burned like distant stars across the sky. The people below whispered in fear. Markets were empty, doors were locked. Priests prayed through the night, begging the heavens to protect them. The noblewoman wrapped her cloak tight around her shoulders and made her way to the council chamber. The corridors were filled with guards, but their eyes betrayed worry. Even steel could not protect hearts from fear. Inside the chamber, voices clashed again, louder than before. Lord Dirivak slammed his fist against the table. No more waiting. Every moment wasted is another moment closer to ruin. We must attack the humans now. We must strike before their full force arrives. Another general shouted. Yes, let our fleets burn the skies, let humanity taste our fury. Better to die with fire than to bow in chains. But others argued differently. One advisor warned, our soldiers are tired. Our supplies thin. If we launch an attack now, we may bleed ourselves dry before the real war even begins, another muttered. What if the humans only appear strong? What if this is a trap to make us act rashly? The noblewoman listened, her hands resting on the cold stone of the table. Her people demanded she choose, attack and risk destruction or wait and risk despair. Every path seemed painted with blood. Lord Dirivak's eyes locked on her. Sharp as blades, you are our leader, my lady. It is your voice that will decide. Will we march to war, or will we cower like frightened children? The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned to her. The weight of their stares pressed like chains around her neck. She opened her mouth to speak, but her heart stuttered. She remembered the human prisoner's words. Humanity never breaks, she remembered his eyes. Burning even in defeat, her generals wanted war. Her advisors wanted caution, but deep inside another thought grew. What if the humans were not here only to destroy? What if they sought something else? What if this war could still be avoided? She dared not speak it aloud. If she whispered of peace, they would brand her a traitor. Already the court doubted her. Already suspicion hunted her steps, yet the thought would not leave her mind. It scratched at her like a blade. Suddenly, the doors of the chamber swung open. A young scout rushed in. His armor scratched, his face pale. He fell to his knees before the council. My lady lords, I bring urgent word. A signal has been received from the human fleet. They send a message, and it is addressed to the lady herself. They call her by name. Gasps filled the hall. The air grew colder. The council erupted into chaos. A trick, it must be a trap, do not listen, shouted one. They seek to poison her mind, cried another. Lord Dirivak's face darkened like storm clouds. Do not answer them, they are serpents. They use words to weaken before the sword finishes the kill, my lady. If you even consider hearing them, you will doom us all. But the noblewoman's heart pounded. A message, from the humans, from the enemy. Her name carried across the void. How did they know her? What did they want? The council shouted around her, but their words faded into a distant roar. All she could hear was her own breath. Fast and sharp, she stood slowly, her cloak brushing the floor. I will see the message, she said, Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise like steel. The chamber froze, all eyes widened. Lord Duravac rose to his feet. His voice thundered, "You cannot. It is betrayal to even listen. Do you value the words of monsters above your own blood?" Her eyes met his, and for the first time, she did not look away. "I value the truth. Even if it comes from shadows," she answered. The council erupted again, some with rage, some with fear. But she had already decided. The impossible choice was no longer between attack or defense. It was between silence and truth. And she chose truth later, in her private chamber. The device was brought to her. It glowed faintly with alien light. The messenger who carried it bowed deeply and left her alone. She touched the panel, and the message unfolded. A human face appeared, older, scarred, but proud. His eyes were sharp, his voice calm. "To the Lady of the Citadel, we know your world fears us. We know your council plots war, but we did not come to destroy, we came to speak. We came because we know your name, and we know your choice will decide the fate of many. Choose wisely, for the galaxy watches." The image flickered and faded, leaving silence in the chamber. The noblewoman stood frozen. Her heart pounded louder than the bells of the Citadel. They knew her name. They knew her burden. The humans had reached across the stars not with fire, but with words her council would never allow it. They would call her weak. They would call her a traitor. But inside she felt something stir, something she had buried for years, the prisoner's fire. She whispered to the empty room, "An impossible choice, but mine alone to make." Her hands trembled. Her heart shook, yet her eyes shone with new fire. The shadows of the enemy had grown darker, but so had her resolve. For the first time, she wondered if her true war was not against humans, but against her own people. The skies above the Citadel burned. Dawn had not yet broken, but the world was already aflame. Great warships cut through the heavens, their engines roaring like thunder. The humans had arrived from the balcony. The noblewoman watched the horizon blaze. Human ships moved in formation, like predators circling their prey. Her people's defenses lit the night with fire, missiles and beams streaking upward, exploding against steel and flame. The city below trembled with each strike. The air itself smelled of smoke and fear. She had known this moment would come, but knowing did not ease the pain. Her people screamed in the streets. Families ran to shelters. Priests begged the gods for deliverance. The Citadel's bells rang without pause. Warning, mourning, crying. In the council chamber, chaos reigned. Generals shouted orders. Advisors demanded answers. Some begged her to lead the attack. Others cursed her for hesitating. Lord Duravac's voice cut through the storm. "This is your fault, my lady. You delayed. You listened to their lies, and now their fire falls upon us. If you are not strong enough to act, then step aside." Her hands shook. But she kept her gaze steady. She could not afford fear now. Not in front of them. Her heart, however, beat with a storm of doubt. She remembered the human message, the promise of words instead of fire. Yet above her, fire rained down all the same. Suddenly a soldier rushed in. His armor cracked, his face streaked with soot. "The outer defenses are breaking. The humans advance through the lower districts. Our soldiers fight bravely, but they do not break. They keep coming." The noblewoman felt the words strike her chest. They do not break. The same words she had once heard from the prisoner. The same truth that haunted her soul. She rushed to the gates, her cloak trailing behind her. Ignoring the shouts of the council, the streets were chaos. Soldiers clashed in burning alleys. Fire lit the faces of the wounded, and screams rose like a dark chorus. The noblewoman's eyes widened as she saw them. Humans, armored, disciplined, their steps heavy but unstoppable. She watched one human soldier take a blade across his arm, yet he did not fall. He pushed forward, his comrades dragging him onward. Their unity was terrifying. They fought as one body, one will. Her own soldiers faltered. Their courage wavered as they saw the enemy refuse to fall. Whispers spread like poison. "They are not mortal, they are demons. They cannot be killed." The noblewoman's heart ached. She wanted to shout, to steady them, but before she could speak, an explosion ripped through the street. The shock wave threw her back, stones cutting her skin. For a moment her vision blurred, her ears rang when she rose. She saw chains, not literal but invisible. Chains of fear binding her people. They stumbled, they hesitated, and in their hesitation they lost. Fear had broken them before the enemy's blade could, and yet the humans endured. Wounded, bleeding, They did not stop. They carried their comrades. They pushed forward, fire in their eyes. The noblewoman stared, torn between terror and awe. She stumbled back into the citadel. Her generals demanded orders, but her voice was distant. Her mind burned with a single thought. How could her people stand against an enemy that refused to fall? How could she carry her people when even their courage had shattered? That night, the council gathered in secret chambers. Shadows clung to the walls like spiders. Lord Derevac's voice dripped with venom. The lady is weak, she hesitates, she falters. And now our city burns if she cannot carry the weight. Then we must carry it for her. Perhaps a crown rests better on another head. Others murmured in agreement, poison whispered in the dark. The noblewoman did not hear their words, but she felt them. She felt betrayal like a knife pressing against her back. In her chamber, she pressed her hands against the cold stone wall. Blood from her cut stained her palms, she whispered into the silence. An impossible burden, her voice trembled. And yet I must endure. But the echoes in the hall were different now. They carried another truth, a darker one. The burden was not only from the humans outside her gates. It was from the chains inside her own people. Chains of fear, chains of betrayal, chains that threatened to strangle her before the humans even claimed victory. As the fires raged outside, she made a silent vow. Her eyes filled with both dread and fire. She would not let fear rule her. She would not let betrayal steal her crown. If her people broke, then she would endure for them. If the humans refused to fall, then so would she. The city burned, the sky thundered, and the noblewoman stood at the center. Bound by fire and chains, her choice was not finished. Her fight not yet lost, the war had only begun. The citadel shook with every blast. Flames rose high in the distance. The humans pressed closer with each passing hour. Yet the noblewoman's greatest fear was not outside the walls, it was inside. The council chamber had grown silent after the latest meeting. Silent not with peace but with plotting. Eyes lingered too long. Whispers followed her steps. Every bow from her advisors felt colder, heavier. Their respect was turning into something else, something poisonous. Late that night, she walked the corridors alone. The torches burned low. Shadows stretched long across the stone. She passed guards, but even their stares felt strange. No longer filled with loyalty, but with doubt. Her cloak dragged across the floor, and with every step, she felt the noose of betrayal tighten. In her chamber, food had been brought. Golden plates heavy with meat and fruit. Her body ached for rest, her stomach twisted with hunger. She reached for the goblet of wine. Dark red like blood, for a moment she hesitated. The weight of her father's lessons returned. Trust no one completely, even your own court, she raised the cup. The liquid touching her lips when a faint smell pricked her senses. Too bitter, too sharp, her heart froze. She set the cup down slowly. Her hand trembled as she poured the wine onto the floor. The stone hissed, the liquid eating into the cracks like acid. Her chest tightened, not from poison, but from the truth. Someone wanted her dead, someone inside these walls. Her eyes burned with fury. She was not safe even in her own chamber. The war outside was a fire, but the war inside was a dagger at her throat. Moments later, a shadow moved in the corner. She spun, her dagger flashing in her hand. A figure stood half hidden in the darkness. It was one of her advisors. Lord Marek, his face pale, his lips pressed thin. "My lady," he said quietly, his tone careful. "You must understand. This war cannot be won with hesitation. The people see weakness. The council fears collapse if you fall. Perhaps it is for the best. Perhaps another should carry the burden." Her hand tightened on her dagger. "You poisoned me," she said, her voice was low. Dangerous, he did not deny it. His shoulders sagged as if the weight of his betrayal was not shame, but certainty. "I did what must be done. You cling to mercy when we need wrath. You listen to whispers of peace when we need blood. You are not the leader our people need." For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Only the crackle of the torch fire dared to speak. Then she stepped forward, her eyes burning. "And yet here I stand. Still breathing, still enduring, still your lady." Lord Marek's face twisted with regret, or was it fear? He turned to leave, but her voice cut through the air like steel. "Go. Tell the others what you failed to do. Tell them their chains will not bind me. If they want my crown, they must tear it from my hands. And I will not yield," he left in silence, his shadow swallowed by the dark. But she knew he was not the only one. The poison had not been his idea alone. The council was splitting apart. Some wanted her dead, some wanted her gone. and only a few still believed. She sank onto her chair, her dagger still clutched in her hand. Her heart raced, her breath sharp. The betrayal cut deeper than any blade. Yet her soul burned with something new, a fire stronger than fear. Outside, the city shook again as human cannons roared. She walked back to the balcony, the wind cold against her face. The horizon glowed with battle, flames rising like mountains of fire. She closed her eyes and whispered, "They want me to break. They want me to fall, but I will not. Humanity never breaks, and neither will I." Her words gave her strength. But she knew the truth. The humans were not her only enemy. Her war was now on two fronts, one against the fire beyond the walls, and one against the knives waiting in the dark halls of her citadel. She would endure, yes, but endurance came with a price. Every step she took from now on would be heavy with danger. Every meal, every council meeting, every word spoken in the corridors could be her last. Still, she stood tall. Her blood was not as cold as her ancestors. Her spirit was not as ruthless as her generals wanted, but her fire burned different. It burned with survival, with defiance. With a promise made in chains, the night grew darker, shadows stretching across the city. Inside those shadows lurked betrayal, waiting, watching, but on the balcony, the noblewoman stood like a flame, refusing to die. Her enemies could poison her, betray her, curse her name, yet she would endure, for an impossible burden still rested on her shoulders. And though betrayal had tried to cut her down, she whispered into the night with unshaken resolve, "I will carry it still." The city lay in ruins. Smoke climbed into the heavens, dark and endless. Streets that once echoed with laughter now shook with the cries of the wounded. The noblewoman walked among the broken stones, her cloak torn, her face streaked with ash. Her guards begged her to remain inside the citadel, but she refused. She needed to see, she needed to know what remained of her people. Everywhere she looked, she saw despair, families huddled in corners, children clutching their mothers, soldiers staring with hollow eyes. Fear had chained them, betrayal had poisoned them. The fire of her people was fading. And yet, beyond the broken gates, she saw something strange. Human soldiers, their armor scratched and burning, were helping the wounded from both sides. Some carried their fallen enemies onto stretchers. Some shared water with those who had cursed them only hours before. The noblewoman froze, her heart pounded. Her people had told her humans were monsters. But here they were, binding wounds, lifting children, fighting not only with swords but with mercy. One of her generals snarled at the sight, "It is a trick, do not believe them. They want to break our spirit with false kindness." But she did not hear him. She stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the humans. Then as the smoke parted, she saw him, a human commander, his face scarred, his eyes fierce but steady. He turned and saw her for a moment. The battlefield seemed silent. His gaze did not hold hatred. It held fire, yes, but also recognition. He raised his voice, strong and clear. "Lady of the Citadel, we do not come to destroy. We come to endure. We come to stand with those who will not break." The words struck her like thunder. Her chest ached, her mind raced. It was the same fire, the same unyielding strength she had seen years ago in the prisoner's eyes. The flame of humanity had not been a lie. It was real, it was here. She took a step closer. Her guards shouted in fear. Some tried to hold her back. "It is a trap, my lady. Do not listen." But she shook free. She would not be caged by fear again. The human commander lowered his weapon. His soldiers did the same. "We know your people see us as demons," he said. "But look around you. Do demons bind wounds? Do demons shield children from fire? We fight because we must, but we endure because it is who we are. Stand with us, lady, not against us." Her throat tightened. She thought of her father, who had died believing strength was in blood and steel. She thought of her council, who whispered of betrayal and weakness. She thought of the prisoner, who had told her humanity never breaks. And she thought of herself, trapped between chains of duty and fire of truth. Slowly she raised her hand, not to strike, but to show she would listen. Her generals gasped. Lord Derivac's face twisted with rage. "You cannot. You shame us. You betray your own blood." She turned to him, her voice sharp as steel. "I do not betray my people, I save them. You call the humans demons, but I see in them what we have lost. I see endurance, I see unity, I see the flame we once carried but let fear extinguish." The general's hand went to his sword, but her guards stepped between them. Loyalty wavered, but for the first time, some chose her, not the council. The human commander stepped closer. Lady, we do not ask for surrender. We ask for alliance. The true enemy is not only war. The true enemy is despair. Together we can endure. Alone we will fall. Her heart beat like a drum. She knew this choice would change everything if she accepted. Her council would turn fully against her if she refused. Her people might die in both fire and betrayal. But deep inside she knew the truth. The flame of humanity had touched her long ago, and now it burned brighter than ever. She spoke, her voice carrying across the battlefield. I will endure, not as a noblewoman bound by chains, but as a warrior who fights beside those who do not break. Humanity's flame burns not only in them, but in me. And I will not let it die. The words spread like sparks. Her soldiers, broken and weary, lifted their heads. Some dropped their weapons in disbelief. Others cried out with new courage. The humans stood firm, their fire unshaken. For the first time she felt something powerful, not the weight of duty, but the strength of choice. She was no longer only her people's heir. She was part of something greater, a flame that could not be chained. And as the smoke swirled above and the fires raged below, the noblewoman realized the truth. Humanity's flame was not theirs alone. It had been passed to her. It now burned in her heart.